First and foremost, I'm just going to start with introductions. So again, my name is Dominique Moore, and I am the graduate assistant for career development within the Center for Career Development. And I am the one who kind of like started this research panel along with my colleague Hannah Holleran on research in undergrad, and specifically focusing on the Black experience and kind of some non-STEM related research, just because STEM research is definitely valued, it's definitely talked about a lot, but when it comes to like the social sciences and humanities type of research, it's not always as seen or as valued as some other research can be. So I'm going to give everyone a chance to kind of introduce themselves. First, I'm going to start out with my colleague, Claire.
Hi everyone, my name is Claire Weedable. I'm a career intern at the Center for Career Development, more specifically on the CLAS Career Ambassador team. And today I'll just be doing some more technical behind the scenes, taking attendance. So if I message you, don't be alarmed. And also just managing the chat. Thanks.
And then again, thank you to my three panelists for being here today. I definitely appreciate all of you. If each of you just want to go around and say your name, your preferred pronouns, and your major, and then quickly just a kind of like a summary of what research you're in currently.
Okay, you can go, Georgia.
Okay, so my name is Georgia Brown, and I'm a chemistry major. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm currently participating in Africana Studies research with the history department. And I don't know if I should go more into what that research is yet, so I'll give the others a chance to.
Hi everyone, I'm Chanel Jones. I'm a political science and human rights major. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm doing research on West Indian immigrant labor outcomes in CT.
Hi, I'm Shaneza. I'm a senior poli-sci and human rights double major as well. And I'm doing research on reproductive violence as it pertains to Black maternal mortality in the United States.
Thank you all. I don't even know if I've said it already, but all of your research topics are some really interesting topics. And I'm definitely excited to kind of hear more on how you all started with that, some of your findings, if possible. But really quickly, I just want to provide an agenda of the event. So today we'll just go through some questions for each of the panelists and then shift through questions from the audience. So audience members, you are definitely able to submit questions at any point throughout this presentation. I will be looking through that, and if I miss anything, you know, Claire will look through that as well. And again, don't be alarmed if she comes around taking attendance. So we're just gonna get right into the questions. The first thing that I want to ask is, why were each of you interested in research?
Yes, I can start. So I'm a senior and I got interested in doing research just by part of being in the honors program. So I had an opportunity in my first semester coming in as a first year to work as a research assistant under a political science professor. And that kind of got my foot in the door on like how to do research in poli-sci and at the collegiate level. So I was working with a professor who did research in a ton of areas and was only supposed to be for that one semester, but she liked me, so I came back for the next semester, did some stuff over the summer, and then through my sophomore year where we did work on environmental justice. That was something really big for her. She was working on a book on water policy in South America, and I did some research for her there, some research on public policy and the job market there at the national level, and yeah, I think those are the major projects that I worked on. So I was pretty independent. So I kind of learned how to do the research on my own and like organize data. And that kind of got me interested in taking a research class in my major my sophomore spring to get like ready to write the honors thesis. And in that class, I designed my own research project studying American public's opinion on immigration, because immigration is a topic I'm really interested in. It's kind of what I hope to practice one day. So I looked at different demographic and opinion factors that affects people's opinion on immigrants and immigration, and found that the only relevant demographic factor was actually political party. And I thought that was really telling as to how partisan our nations become. So I was able to present that at Frontiers, and because of that, my advisor encouraged me to apply to the University Scholars Program, which you can apply for in your junior year, and is a prestigious undergraduate award and research program where you get to design your own research project that goes beyond the honors thesis if you're in honors. So kind of got started because I had this opportunity and I said yes and kept saying yes to more opportunities.
I guess I can go. So even though Chanel and I did the same major, and we started off kind of the same because I also did the Bennett RA program through poli-sci. So I had a little different experience, probably because I started, and the research that I did, although it was interesting, it wasn't really something that piqued my interest. So I didn't really continue or really take that much interest in research until my sophomore fall, spring kind of thing. I really think I started getting into or interested in research when I was taking classes that really interested me. The fall of my sophomore year, I took my first W, and we had to write a research paper. And because it had to do with how the human rights of children are violated, I was kind of exasperated with the standard human rights student mentality of, oh, these poor people in all these other countries, they're having all their rights violated. So I was like, enough of that. Like, I'm kind of tired of having that narrative. So I decided to be obnoxious, and my topic was originally sex trafficking in the US, which, as you could assume, there isn't much on that. So we decided to still be just as controversial, but have data. So I did child marriage in the US, which definitely had a nice big shock factor. I wrote a paper I decided to present on Ann Frontiers as well. And then from there, I kind of wanted to keep pursuing topics that I was interested in that usually stem from class. So then I pursued a research project through IDEA about body image and how Eurocentric ideals of body image affect women of color, specifically Black and Latinx women in the US. And I held some workshops. That was a little difficult just because it was by myself. And all this time, I also didn't have the mentality of I'm going to be working on a thesis, because I didn't sign up for or apply to the honors program until my junior year because I was a bum. So for those of you that are thinking about it, just do it. It's not that much of a difference. I still had to take the classes and I had to cram them in. So if you're thinking about it, just do it. And by that point, I had also considered applying for U Scholar, but that kind of didn't end up working out. And also, I think it worked out for the better for me because by the time I was going to apply for U Scholar, my project had transformed into something that I no longer really wanted to work on, because my advisor was trying to make sure I hit all the criteria, but also make sure that it was rigorous to her standards. And I just didn't feel comfortable with it. But ultimately, for my thesis, I decided to refocus my original project for the U Scholar and focus on something that I had touched on sophomore year, but wanted to go more into depth. And again, it was relevant to me because I am a Black woman in America, but I also wanted to do this. A lot of my research, I've been wanting to focus on things that obviously are important to me, pertain to me, but also have that factor of, let's not forget that the United States has their own problems, and that just because I'm a human rights major and we study all these other countries does not mean that we get to put developed or Western all these nations on a pedestal, and I really like to do things that kind of remind us and reground us and remind us like we're not as good as sometimes we like to think, and how can we improve on that.
So I guess by default, I'll go last. Those are beautiful. I love what you guys are doing. My experience started off really differently. I was a freshman when I got the chance to do research, and I got the opportunity through work study. So I came in as a student, a part of the SSS program, and that's basically a program that's set in place for underrepresented students, first generation, usually low income. And I remember having a mentor at the time, and I remember telling her that it started off really as me wanting a job to get, like, I wanted an opportunity to have at least some pocket money, as I was telling myself. And she's like, I know this great professor, she's a part of the Africana Studies department. She's looking for students who are interested in, doing research and motivated enough to be a part of the program. And I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting. And she also told me that, okay, like, she's Jamaican. So I was super excited because I'm also Jamaican. So I'm like, that's a great place to start off. And I had the opportunity to talk to her. We did an interview, and she basically told me what her topic was and what she wanted to look into. And it was basically West Indian minorities in Hartford, Connecticut, and home ownership, and looking at different ways that different discriminatory factors played into them getting a home or owning a home, because there's like a difference between like owning your home as a Black person or as a Latinx person, and then living in low income areas or public housing, and you see that big disparity between the groups. Like, if you're white, there's like a higher chance you're located in areas where you might own a home. But if you are a Black person or a Latinx person or Puerto Rican person coming into America, there's like a lower chance of you getting that opportunity. So it was really interesting starting off to do that. And I had that chance to be able to participate in an exhibition that she had at the end of the project, where it was basically sophomores, juniors, grad students, and we all got the chance to basically like talk and speak on our own parts that we had the chance to either write on or go out and do more readings or interviews on. So that, I think that's like being able to find connections within like UConn, I think is one of the best ways to, I think, to get research opportunities. Finding like a mentor or one of your peers, someone who's older than you, who probably has that experience to like go out and ask them. Don't be afraid to ask. Yeah.
I definitely thank each of you for those answers and getting to know more of like how y'all got started in research, which brings me to my next question. Was there anyone that you reached out to for support when you recognized that this was a particular interest that you wanted to pursue? So I know, Georgia, you kind of started talking about your mentor and how y'all got started in that, but were there specific people that you decided to reach out to for support?
I can talk or start talking about that. So for me, I was kind of lucked out because I had a really great honors advisor, like I said, and she taught my research class my spring semester sophomore year, and encouraged me to apply for U Scholar, which is counting for my thesis. But for the U Scholar process, you need 3 people on your chair or on your committee. So she let me know of other people doing research in the area that I'm interested in, and I reached out to them. They've all been very helpful. So even though she encouraged me to do the program, she's not the chair of my committee. It's actually Professor Venator, who kind of took me under his wing, even though my research is a little bit different than what he usually does. He's more focused on Latinx research, but still on like the immigrant and economic like experiences. So that kind of worked out pretty great. And he's been a helpful like resource to me whenever I can catch him. So that's something it's something that's been a little tough, especially virtually. Making sure you're like in touch with your research advisors and following up and all of that and being proactive. And I had another, my last committee member is Professor Silverstein in the Human Rights Department, and she's awesome. She's super sweet and really helpful, and always sending like good resources and open to meet whenever, even though my project, again, was a little bit out of her like range of expertise. I think I also had help from Professor Vernal. I think Georgia might be talking about her research because obviously West Indian, and that's the type of research I'm doing. So yeah, she's a little intimidating, but she's definitely knows what she's doing is really like well respected and has a lot of like research experience in West Indians and NCT. So she's been a good resource for me as well in that area. So yeah, just going to your advisors. If you didn't look out with like a great advisor, talking to your professors. If you see that they're doing research that is interesting to you, or if they might know other people doing that type of research, definitely reach out and be proactive about getting experiences you want.
To kind of go off of that, so for my research, when I wanted to do an independent study outside of class after my freshman year, what I did, I bet there are easier ways to do it, is I just started looking up like departments and going through to see the faculty that match kind of the interests that I was pursuing. And for the most part, it was successful because I was able to find one professor that I ended up communicating with from sophomore year until now as a senior. So he's been helping me even with like my lit review for my thesis and that kind of stuff. So kind of what Chanel was saying, when in doubt, what I would recommend is just going to professors like whose classes that you liked. I never really had a situation in which my advisor was thebomb.com and was able to get me like the things that I needed. I had to kind of find them. And a lot of the ways that I would do that is like through office hours. That's kind of how you can gauge the kind of professor and the relationship that you want to have with them. So I, on 2 occasions now, I was able to do that. And I was able to also find my thesis advisor from a professor, from reaching out to a professor saying, this is what I'm interested in. What are your opinions on, or is there some direction you can point me to about this topic? And that's kind of when they were like, here's a professor you should talk to. And that was how I was introduced to Dr. Hertel, who's now my thesis advisor. I'm pretty sure that her area of focus is not remotely what I'm doing. I wouldn't know because she's very good at pulling like from the news, or she has a lot of contacts. And one of her strongest characteristics now is not only does she keep me organized because I'm a procrastinator. So I let her know, okay, I procrastinate, I want to send you things, and she makes sure to hold me to that. But she also is always encouraging me to reach out to other professors and get other opinions and just seek out as much as I can, because it's better to have too much and to have to pare it down in some situations, especially with as topics that are as niche as ours. It's definitely better to have too much and to have to pare it down than to not have enough. So that was how I was able to find her.
I definitely agree with speaking to professors that you find interesting. Like, even like, I know this isn't about STEM, but this is like an experience that I feel like is general, like applies to any area. Really finding like a faculty member or a professor that is doing a subject because they're really looking looking for students who are willing to do the work. And then if they see that you're interested in what they're doing, they're more likely to like respond to you and say, okay, well, I see that you really like, you know, looking at home ownership for minorities, so we can work on that, rather than going just for the fact of doing research. I think that's like the best place to start off. Also, like going off of what the others said, like talking to your advisors and trying to reach, like create links and connections between them, because they can probably refer you to somebody, and then that person can refer you to another person. And if you're continually like reaching out to multiple people, I think that would really help. Also, I believe that the Office for Undergraduate Research is also really helpful. You can also look through them. And there's also, if the medium of research you want to do varies, like for instance, if you are trying to tick the box of getting research experience and pocket money, I think that you going on Job X would be a really nice place to go, like looking for a certain like criteria to fill within that experience that you want, or topic or subject. I think that would be a good direction to go in.
Thank you. And you all pretty much covered another question on like, who did you choose as an advisor and why? So the next thing that I would like to ask is, once you identified your research topic, how did you begin your research? What were the next steps that you all took?
This is a good question, because I feel like I tried to block out this time in my life because it was just hard. So if you're planning on applying to the Scholar program, just beyond the honors thesis, that deadline is November of your junior year. So it's recommended that you start, sorry, I don't know, beeping, but that you start like looking for faculty members and like working on your research over the summer as early as you can. But I had made up my mind that I wasn't applying, you know, I was good with the thesis. I didn't think, you know, I could even like get these scholars. So it's like, there's no point. And then in September, my advisor was like, what are you doing? Like, send in a letter of intent, like you're doing the proposal. So I was like, okay. And so I spent those 2 months trying to figure out my life and what exactly I was gonna do. So I kind of had a start. I knew I wanted to do something related to immigration. Daughter of immigrants, West Indian immigrants. So I wanted to pivot and focus on West Indian immigrants specifically, because I had been looking at immigrants generally overall. So I wanted to get more specific and niche, which is something that you're able to do when you're doing your own research. So I was looking at that and trying to figure out what exactly I'd be doing with that topic. If I wanted to focus on first generation immigrants, second generation immigrants, if then I want to look at cultural aspects or social, religious, etc. And ultimately it came down to looking at economic outcomes, because I thought it would be interesting. After reading different articles, something that came up a lot was comparing African American versus other African and West Indian immigrants' economic and educational levels. That was something that was compared a lot. There's this couple of different theories, kind of like the model minority theory that applies to a lot of Asians as being a model minority. So that there's kind of a similar concept there with West Indians and other African immigrants. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of research that and to see what differences there are, if there are any, with educational, economic outcomes of your children in the US, and maybe what kind of reasons are there for those underlying differences, if there are any. So I think it was easy for some previous scholars to point to, oh, you know, we have like superior cultural attitudes, and that's why we work so hard. But I think there are also other underlying factors, such as if you're an immigrant, you're more likely to be like hungry for opportunities than just a whole group that was already here already. And you're more like able to access more opportunities, and what is it? And then also coming from majority Black countries, like how that socialization is different for you than versus an African American who's in the US and is marginalized continuously. So I just thought that that would be a cool topic to cover. It's a little bit bit controversial at times, and prickly points I thought would be interesting to get into. So kind of refined that topic down by looking at different articles my advisors were sending me, finding stuff on my own, different resources through the Econ Library, and yeah, speaking to my advisors.
For me, I'm sorry, is the question like what was the process of like research once we decided on our topic? Is that the question?
Yeah.
So for me, for the thesis specifically, once I decided like the general theme of maternal mortality as it pertains to Black women and this general concept of reproductive violence and how it disproportionately impacts Black women, the next step was, because for the thesis, we always kept, we were asked repeatedly, like, why is this important? Why is it relevant? Like, what is the impact of this topic? So it was really just thinking about what that meant, because obviously you can say maternal mortality is important, but like, what does that specifically mean to Black women? So my next step was really figuring out what I wanted to convey through my research and what I wanted my thesis to focus on. And I settled on this concept of how reproductive violence generally, but specifically maternal mortality, impacts Black women regardless of their income, regardless of their education. And I really thought that was important because it was like when I was talking things through with my advisor and we were talking about like Serena Williams and Beyonce. And I just like, the reason why I settled on this is because I was like, if Beyonce is writing all these things and she's sharing her story and she had problems, if Serena Williams had problems, had an aneurysm after giving birth, then me, someone that's normal, like nobody's safe. And why is that? And so from that point, because it was so general and because it's so multifaceted, and I wanted to look at how we got to this point. So going backwards and looking at history and slavery and sterilization and eugenics, because there was so much that I wanted to cover, because it's such a pervasive topic, it really took a long time for me to just keep funneling it in and really narrow it down, because I am only an undergrad and this thesis is only supposed to take me X amount of months, not years. So I really did struggle with that, I think because I was so overzealous. But so the next steps in my process, when I figured out why it was relevant and what I wanted to talk about, was figuring out how much I can really possibly conquer and what was most important to me to discuss. And then also the slight caveat of relating it back to poli-sci, because it is a poli-sci thesis. It was a major caveat, just so we're clear. It was not easy. So that was what I did next. And I think it was helpful because I did have the thesis class to make sure that I focused on funneling it down, and I got a lot of feedback because of that. But in situations where you might not be taking a class, because I'm not sure if every major even has the fall class, I would recommend talking to your advisor, like Chanel was saying. Advisors, especially when it's something that you're really passionate about, and they know that, they do a really good job from what I've seen of sending you articles and staying engaged themselves. So that was definitely really helpful when I was trying just to even pare down my topic a lot.
Could you refresh me on what the question was, please?
Yeah, so I was asking all of you, once you identified your research topic and what you wanted to explore, what were the next steps for you?
Okay, so my experience was different. I didn't particularly start off with independent research, and I'm still not doing independent research, but being able to be a part of like the Africana Studies department in terms of like staying on as a research assistant, it was able to show me that I wanted to take on a minor in Africana Studies. It helped me, it helped to steer me in a new direction of what I wanted to do as a minority who was in STEM, and also like to inform my actions in terms of what I want to study, like incorporating my understanding of what it meant to be an underrepresented like group in the University of Connecticut, and also being a part of STEM and trying to be as well-rounded as possible, taking on research in Africana studies. It also helped to inform me a lot about what it meant to actually be a minority in Connecticut, because I feel like a lot of people, when they associate discrimination, they associate it to the South. And doing the research that I did in freshman year, and I'm still currently doing it, it helped to show me that, one, the discrimination that we see in the South that may be like barefaced racism is kind of wrapped in a box with a bow when it comes to the North, and it's like prepackaged for you, like, okay, well, if you're a Black person going into a suburbs area to get a house, like every person's gonna run away that's white, you're gonna have white flight, because you know they don't want the money that's kind of like in that in that place to like go down. And you're asking yourself, well, why is it going down in the first place? Is it like that Black people bring crime into these areas, or is it that there's like a preconceived idea of who Black people are? Is there a preconceived idea of who Latinx people are? Is there a preconceived idea of who minorities are? And I think Chanel like touched on a good point where she talked about like the idea of, oh, I'm forgetting. But like going off of like, you know, like minorities and like West Indians, right? I remember talking about West Indians and that idea of the difference between being a West Indian person and your work ethic. I think that's really like the myth behind like the minorities being like, whether you're Asian American or you're Black, who's the model minority here. And then there's that separation between West Indians that are Black and African Americans who are already here. So I think that it, like, definitely you can go on and you can have an independent project that you go into, but it can also like help you to find a new minor or a new major. So yeah.
Thank you. So my next question is, what barriers, if any, did you face when looking for research opportunities, and how did you overcome them?
I can start. Barriers, looking for research opportunities. First, I would say time. I mean, I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to do research, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it took me a while to figure that out. And you're only there for 4 years. I know it feels like it's a long time, but when you go into your sophomore year and you're thinking, okay, I have a general theme of something I want to do, and I want to pursue, like, get a grant for it. When you're actually applying for the grant, it's a lot. Like, they have so many questions. They're like, this is a good idea, but you need to consider X, Y, Z, like the whole freaking alphabet. So you're there and you're like, oh, you're right. And it takes a while. So even actually, I think I had the topic I did for my idea grant, I had thought about it for a little bit the spring of my freshman year. And I had, like, I was just like, okay, I'm going to go into my sophomore year and this is what I'm going to do. I wasn't able to execute my plan for the research until the summer going into my junior year. So it takes a long time, especially when you're doing these programs like U Scholar, like Chanel is saying. You can think as someone that was going to apply myself, you think, okay, I have a general theme the summer going into before I apply, I should be fine. I got there in September and my advisor was very on top of everything, and I was still struggling to make sure that I would be able to get everything in on time. So a major barrier, especially when you're trying to pursue like the big grants and the big programs, I would say time, when there are so many things that you want to do. But aside from that, it's also figuring out like, okay, I have a topic. What do I want to do with that? What is the end product? And I always used to get stumped on that question too, because as a poli-sci and human rights double major, the product is usually going to be a paper. And not everybody is as enthused as some of us that enjoy writing papers. So they're like, oh, anything else? Or is that it? Are you going to publish it? Where are you going to publish it? And then once you, right. So once you think about that, it's the whole process of going through and thinking about when are you going to publish it? And then you have to back up again. And so that I would say was one of the hardest parts of the process. And then the only other hard part I would say is when you're sitting down to actually start working on it, as is the case in the thesis, when you've decided, okay, this is what I'm doing, I have a plan, I have a map of everything that I want to cover, all of that, and you're sitting down to find the articles or you're sitting down to do the reading, it can be so overwhelming. And I am the type of student that when they get overwhelmed just closes their computer, which I'm sure many of us do, and I'm sure that we know we shouldn't. So as I'm closing it, I'm like, oh, this is a terrible idea, but I'm still going to do it. It's just because the sheer volume of stuff can sometimes just be like, where do I even start? How do I organize everything that I'm going to sift through? Is this too much? Is it too little? I found even right now with reading for the thesis, like half of what I found in the fall, and I really thought I was killing it, writing up and fulfilling all of my assignments. I'm looking at them again, and I'm like, oh, half of the things that I'm reading, I feel like it's not that they're a waste of time, but they're just not as important as they once were. So it's like you find yourself doing the same thing sometimes over and over. And it's okay because I'm learning a lot. Like I'm very well versed on something that I definitely would not have been, but it can sometimes get a little frustrating. So you need to find time to step back. Like Chanel was saying, like when she was talking about U Scholar and even the honors thesis in the beginning, you just need to take time for yourself. I know both of us were also applying for law school this fall, so doing the thesis and applying for law school, and we also both retook the LSAT. If you wanted to discuss trauma, that would be this. And so for those of you that you're thinking that that's the path you're going to go down, it's not to discourage you, because I think also a lot of people have a habit of when they're talking about things like this, they're like, oh, it was terrible. Oh, worst time of my life. And it can be like very discouraging. Not to mention that when you are a Black woman in these spaces, you may not feel as welcome, or the topic you might choose, you don't want to choose or select something that's like too Black, which, right. Anyway, I think all three of us can agree that sometimes stirring the pot would be the best situation. But back to the stressful part, it's important to just really take some time for yourself, especially when you're going through those periods of intense high stress. It's important to know when you've had enough and when you should probably bite the bullet and stop procrastinating.
That was so good, and also reminded me of trauma. I'm trying to forget, but yeah, I would say I was trying to think of barriers and official barriers for me. I don't think I really had any official barriers. Like I was able to get funding for my projects. I was able to get good advisors who advised me on what I needed to do and all of that. So that was all helpful and useful. But other barriers, like Shaneza was saying, would be like time and like managing your time, especially if you're applying for these grant programs, because even after you apply, like there's still a ton of stuff to do after. If you're like studying like human subjects, you have to go through the whole IRB process, and that is a struggle and a hassle in itself, and you might be like going through that like multiple like reviews multiple times, and other grant processes that you need to do to get like your funding for your project. So it's a multi-step process. And then another barrier would be if you're not like used to getting your work critique, which I had some experience. It always sucks every time it happens, especially like it's your baby, it's your project, you're passionate about it, something you're interested in, and you might have advisors, professors telling you this is shit. Oh, sorry, this is bad, and people have already studied this, and you're not adding anything. Like, what are you adding? And it's like pressure to find something that you can like contribute to and like actually add something new to the field. And so that's really hard when you feel like you have to find like something new, contribute something new within the time frame that you have as an undergraduate. So that was definitely one issue. Another issue I feel like definitely in social sciences is kind of feeling pressured with your research methods and to look at things through a more statistical lens to gain more credence. So I think there's this whole like debate with qualitative versus quantitative, and it's just so much easier to say, okay, I'll just do like something quantitative, do something with numbers so people can like respect my research, especially if you're doing a controversial topic, which is why I did like a mixed method. So I'd have both quantitative and qualitative research, but COVID like messed that all up. So I'm really like focusing on the qualitative side, which I'm actually happy about. I feel that I was able to actually like talk with people and get to know more about their experiences and just like, collecting numbers and like running them through some different statistical analysis. So that was another area burden or kind of like pressure that I feel like a lot of people feel in social sciences, especially if you planning to go to grad school or get a PhD afterwards. It's really like something that you're encouraged to do is have some like mathematical quantitative aspect, which obviously is important, but people have different research interests and different methods that might work better for your project. So I definitely don't feel compelled to have to do the type of research you might be pushed to do. That was one thing that I kind of just went with what like my advisors were telling me to do, just because it was easier to do that. But if there's another topic that, or there's another way that you want to like research that, I feel like you definitely can stand your ground and add your contributions, and your advisor should be able to help you to do that. So those are just a couple of different things. But yeah, like Shaneza was saying, even though like it sucks while you're going through it, it definitely is doable. Like we both came out, managed to like, succeed, we're still alive and still we're able to have a good time. So it's about like being able to manage your time and being able to say no when you need to, which is, I know is like hard. That's very hard for me. So I like to be reliable and say yes to everything, but honestly, you have to prioritize things that are important and what you need to do. So don't feel bad when you have to prioritize some things over the other.
I'm gonna go from a personal point of view and like start off by like kind of recording something that my advisor told me the other day, which was basically like start asking yourself yes questions instead of no questions. It's like gonna be really hard, even like myself looking for more opportunities that are STEM based. There are so many opportunities out there. UConn is known for being a research school. Like if anybody tells you about UConn, it's going to be that UConn does research. But then there's also trying to find who you can do the research for. And you might find a professor that you really, really like, and you reach out to them multiple times and they don't respond because, research, like professors have stuff to do like we have stuff to do. But if that happens, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like a step in your process, in your path. And that's just going to be something that, you can look back and say, well, they told me no, but I kept going. I had like a plan B to the plan A, and I had a plan C to the plan D. And it seems all abstract, but I think one of the most important barriers that I faced while looking into different research opportunities was imposter syndrome and feeling like I wasn't capable of doing it. And I think that is something that a lot of people can attest to the fact that they've experienced, at least saying, you know, can I, should I, maybe somebody already did this. I feel like this is a bad idea. Does this even sound interesting? Like, stop asking yourself those things, because that starts projecting, then somebody else is going to see that you're feeling that way. Even if you're not saying it outwardly, it's showing on you. So I think going in with this confidence of what you want to research, whether it's a topic or a project, or it's just like a theme, bouncing it off of somebody and seeing, okay, well, how does this sound? Like, I'm really excited, you know, making sure that you're spreading yourself wide for different opportunities and seeing what different themes are, being open to different opportunities that aren't like stuck on one thing, I think would be like the best way. Like, and definitely don't self-sabotage. Don't, you know, go in and say, you know what, halfway through the process, you're like, you know what, probably I shouldn't do it. Probably it's not for me, because there are so many, like for instance, there's the Bold Women's Scholarship, I believe, or the grant. And I remember a friend of mine recommended me for it. And I was like, oh, there's gonna be like so many like impressive people out there who are so much better than I am. And you know what? I didn't get it. And for me, that was an opportunity where I got to see what, like, I got the chance to look over what I actually wanted to do for my topic. And I had the chance to review it and say, well, you know what, I can put this somewhere else. I can show this to someone else and see if this is something I want to get a grant for. You know, I'm also a part of LSAMP. I can tie in a STEM aspect to it and see how I could get funding. So there's so many different ways. Basically what I'm saying is, like, make sure that you're forming connections and links and you're meeting people. That's like one of the best things. And don't be scared. I'm always scared of talking to people, but there are people who want to help you and they'll put a smile on their face. Don't worry.
Thank you all for your transparency. It is definitely appreciated. I have two more questions. However, because of time, I'm gonna sort of shift to the audience questions. So one person asks, did any of you have the feeling of not being good enough or qualified enough or ready to do research? If yes, how did you overcome that?
I love this question. I think it's a great question that Georgia was kind of talking about with the imposter syndrome. That's definitely something that I struggled with, like with applying to the University Scholars Program. Even though I had my advisor, like, you know, great in her field, his advice of like hundreds of honor students tell me that the research I was doing as a sophomore was graduate level. I still doubted myself and felt like I shouldn't apply to this program. Like, there's no point, I'm not going to get it, I'm not what they're looking for. And I think that that self-doubt is something that a lot of people experience, but especially minority women, etc., occupying spaces that weren't meant for us, and, you know, feeling that we're not worthy. But I want you to know that you are. And if you're being told to apply for something, or if you feel like you can't apply for it, just go for it. And the worst that you can be told is no, and that's a redirection. And something that like also helped me was reading Michelle Obama's Becoming. I love her, literally my role model. And I remember she said something about how she's been at every like powerful table in the world, and you know, the people there are not that much smarter, they're just more confident. So walk with the confidence that these people have, because there's no reason why. Yes. Listen, read her book. Oh my gosh, it was so empowering. The difference a lot of times is just confidence. Like, it's not that people are so much smarter than you, they're just more willing to like reach out and take risks, be more willing to take risks. And it's okay if you fail or fall. So that's just a redirection and a learning experience. So it's scary. I still face imposter syndrome to this day, like going to law school. Like, I'm be the first lawyer in my family, first gen student, all that. Like, it's terrifying, but you know, if you don't take the risk, you'll never know how good you can succeed. So definitely, you know, go do it, try it, and make sure you have good mentors in your corner sponsoring you.
I can go on to the next question. Oh, you can go ahead if you want
No,
to.
I was just gonna say the same thing to echo Chanel. Sorry. And also one thing I would also add is one thing that I've noticed, not just in college, but also I have two younger sisters and one of them is in high school. One thing that is still hard, I think, in general for women, for people, but especially as a Black woman or a young Black woman in academia, is asking questions because you don't want to sound stupid or you don't want to feel like you're annoying them or taking up their time. And one thing that I've now realized I consistently have done, it wasn't really a conscious thing, is um, I'm not really sure when it happened, but at some point in my first 2 years, I kind of got over that. From being in high school and never participating to getting to college and always being at office hours and my professors know who I am. And it's now kind of a joke that I make where it's like, from the first day of class, my professors will know who I am because I will be in their inbox or I will be in their office. Because at the end of the day, um, I need to make sure that I'm gaining what I want to gain, not just grades, even though, as Chanel was talking about, I was applying to law school and the hustle and all that. But also, it's just like, I want to make sure that it's clear to them that I'm taking this seriously and that they should take it seriously as well. And I think one of the problems is how you can not really get bullied, but definitely get intimidated by um, professors because they're so smart, they've gone to school, they're so well versed and blah, blah, blah. And you don't want to feel like you're taking up their time or you're getting under their skin by asking them all these questions or by constantly emailing them. And one of the things that I've just come to terms with is quite frankly, I don't care. If I have a question or if I have something that I want to know and it's not answered, I will reach out or I will show up and I will find out. Obviously, like, you can Google if it's something like that, then obviously do that. But I do think it's important to kind of establish from the jump, especially with advisors, where the parameters are. Like, if this is a project that you're passionate about, trying to make sure that it doesn't spiral out of control into something bigger than you want, something different than you want. When you're researching for a professor, making sure that it's still a topic. Yeah, it's their topic, it's their research, making sure it's still something that piques your interest at some point. And just that kind of thing. Um, I think it's important. I have had a situation in which it started off great and I was recommended to an advisor. And they were like, oh, this person is so good. As a Black woman, they will help you, they will uplift you. And it's not that they didn't, because I've seen proof that they have. It's just communication wise, I could have done more to explicitly state what I was feeling or whatever. But also on their end, they could have done more as well. So I do think that with this, communicating is key, and especially when you're fighting with imposter syndrome, or you have people that, because there are some professors in poli-sci, in this humanities, that are about tough love, especially for Black women. They're like, we want you to have a thicker skin, we want you to succeed, but we are going to express tough love. And sometimes, in my experience, tough love can come across as a little more harsh than necessary. And I think it's important that you can stand up for yourself and you tell yourself, I have a right to be here, like Chanel and Georgia were saying. You have that confidence, it's important. But also projecting that onto others and letting them know, well, hello, I'm here because maybe I reached out to you, or I applied for something and I got it, or whatever the case may be. I'm supposed to be here. I want to be here. You should know that I respect you, but you should also respect me. And just because they're a professor or something does not mean that, yeah, I think we can all agree that we were all raised in homes where you're supposed to respect your elders and that, but also, like, it's not a crime to require that respect back, especially as a student of color. Um, I think it's important as well.
Yes, take up space, own space, and also you're paying these professors their tuition. They are here to help you. This is what they're literally being paid for. And most of the time, people love talking about themselves. So they will be overjoyed to talk about their research in any way that can help you. So remember that.
Yeah, great answers all around. Couldn't have said it better myself. Another question that we have is, if I don't want to have a career in research or academia, would you still recommend I try research as an undergrad?
Most definitely. I'm sorry. I feel like doing research at any point will probably like change the way that you look at your work, even if it's not something that is necessarily aligning with your major or your minor. Still being able to delve in that part of your mind, asking questions, like asking bigger questions, thinking differently. I think that it really helps you as a student, because now you're not just taking everything that, like, imagine sitting down in a class in a lecture and a professor says something. Now you're not just taking it as, oh, the sky's blue. You're asking yourself, well, why is the sky blue? Like, what affects that? You're asking like, research helped me so much that now every little thing that I see around campus, for instance, like sitting down in a Wix class or sitting down in Africana class, I can see certain things from different angles and different perspectives that I wasn't able to see before. I'm asking myself certain questions. Like, it's like weird, but I don't feel as intimidated anymore to ask people questions. Like, someone says something that's like low-key, like, I don't want to say low-key racist, but like they'll say something like prejudice, and I'm just sitting there like, well, you can't say that because blah, 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 blah. And I think even if it's not in that field of whether it's Africana studies or dealing with human rights, I just think that it's really important to do it. Like, I think it might not be something that you want to do in the future, but even to go into grad school, because that's kind of what that field is, you're asking bigger questions and you're working with mentors. So I think it's really important that, like, even if it's not the field or the career that you want to go into, there's still skills that are transferable that will help you out in the future.
To go off of that, and kind of also to touch on what was asked in the chat about entering research late. What was the question? Oh, God, I always do this.
In the Q&A.
In the chat, or the one that I asked?
Q&A. In the Q&A, yeah.
Okay. In the Q&A, it was asked, if you don't want to
Oh, yes.
career in research or academia, would you still do research in undergrad?
Yeah, so I would say yes. I mean, I'm also planning on going to law school and becoming a lawyer, like Chanel was saying, for herself. And I'm not planning on being one of those PhD, JD, like, doing this school is already enough for me. But I would say that it helps me a lot with internships, I would say. I know that it's helped me, it strengthened me as a writer as well. And to kind of touch on the question in the chat about what do you do when you start research late, I would say that I also didn't really get going in my actual researching until later in my career. So to speak to that, even if you're not pursuing even like going to grad school or whatever, it's definitely helpful. Like Georgia was saying about even just understanding things differently or utilizing kind of a different perspective because you're pulling from something you're really well versed in. I know when I took classes like critical race theory and stuff like that, I was able to pull out receipts in class conversation about different topics because I had conducted research. But even when it comes down to like working in an internship and writing, I found that when it comes to like doing research for whoever I'm working for and then writing up something to summarize it, I'm better at doing that because I have perfected how to conduct a proper search of documents or how to find reliable news or media articles. How do I report on that? I've kind of gotten the hang of it because of lit reviews or annotated bibliographies, etc. So I think that it's helpful. When you're doing quantitative data, yes, that will be helpful. You will become well versed in all of those sites. I couldn't even tell you because I don't know them, but I think that it's very useful job wise and internship wise. And also like I found a lot of your internship whoever's employers will be really impressed with the caliber of your writing or the caliber of your work, just because, and it's not like you're doing that much to go the extra mile. It's simply because you've gotten so good and you've been strengthening this skill over time just by working on your thesis or just by doing research on a topic that you're really interested in. And it does set you apart from other interns and other people that are applying. And also putting that even on just your resume shows a lot, and it speaks to who you are, because it's a lot of extra work that you didn't need to do. It's a lot of initiative that you didn't necessarily need to take. And it also shows what you're passionate about, and it speaks to you as a person. So I think that I feel like we should all do it. I mean, most of the W classes ask you to write research papers anyway, but I think that it's really not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think conducting research is definitely something that you should do, whether or not you're planning on going to grad school or not. I know for me, I'm going to law school, so it's a little different than grad school. And when you do like research well, your advisors might like want you to consider getting a PhD, but obviously don't feel pressure to do something that you're not totally 100% committed to, because obviously a PhD, that is a lot of commitment and work. So you're not like pigeonholed or beholden to continuing research after you're finished with your undergrad career. But like what Georgia and Shanez has been saying, it's really transferable skill. You learn how to think critically, and you learn how to find like reliable resources, which is really helpful. I know for one of the first internships I had at a law firm, after my freshman year, I probably got that job in the first place because I had that research position on campus, because I literally had nothing else as a freshman. So and then also like having those research skills like led me to like having more upper level tasks at that job, and different internships I've held afterwards where I actually got to research a pro bono immigration case. So something that I'm interested in, and because I saw that like I had experience, kind of knew what I was doing, took class, etc. I got to do like research like on the country of Guatemala to help build this pro bono case. So it's definitely a transferable thing that your employers will love to see, and that will carry you far in internships, jobs, if you do apply for like grad school, law school, other further education. So definitely useful skill, something to do. And if you're starting late, definitely advise you to talk to your advisors. Go talk to the people at Undergraduate Research Center. There are advisors there that you can like set them an appointment with to go speak with. Go to office hours, figure out something that you're interested in. You don't have to be in honors or a U Scholar to pursue research. You can pursue your research outside of that. You can apply for funding outside of that. So there's a ton of opportunities. You just have to be proactive about it.
This panel definitely isn't about me, but if I could honestly say anything also to answer that question, I think as someone who has conducted research in undergrad and in grad school, conducting research helps you to understand people better. So regardless of if you want to continue with education or, anything of that sort, conducting research will genuinely help you to understand people better and specific communities better. So it's always going to be something that I would personally recommend as well. But to move on, I know we're almost out of time. So the last couple of questions that I have, if you all know, something that we got early was, is it too late to apply for summer research?
Yeah, so I was actually looking that up, and it's not entirely too late yet, but the deadlines are fast approaching. So if you don't have a topic already or advisors ready to help you sit on your chair, it might be a little bit of a rush. So it also did the IDEA grant, and there's like summer funding for that, and then there's like a year-round program, which I think the summer was due in the summer, but they have like a deadline coming up early March. I would say it's not too late to start like researching a research project. And if you want to apply for a grant, do that next year, because right now it doesn't make much sense. It's like too much of a time crunch. So when you're like doing a research proposal, you're probably going to go through at least 5 different drafts of that proposal with people giving you different feedback leading you to different directions. And like we spoke about, it's kind of hard to narrow down a topic once you're starting. So yeah, it's never too early to start thinking about what type of research you want to do. But as for like getting grants and actually getting going, I think it might be a bit of a crunch right now. So definitely something that you can think of and try to refine over the summer.
Thank you. Oh,
Also, just kind of touch on that. I know for me, because I didn't really do a grant or anything until I was halfway through, or more than halfway through actually. One thing that you could keep in mind is just like, I know when I was a freshman and I was sitting at the Poli-Sci Awards, it was a very vivid memory for me. And I just remember sitting there as a naive freshman knowing I wanted to go to law school, and I was listening to all these people get their awards. And in Poli-Sci, you write a summary of like the things that you've done. And sometimes the professors will also add their own to substantiate. So I was sitting there just listening to them literally read laundry lists of achievements of just, it's not like it was everybody, but it felt like everyone. And that really it quite literally deployed me into a panic, because I was like, oh, I'm definitely not doing enough if they have all of these things. And one thing that I would recommend is, even now, when you're thinking of, now that you found out, like, for instance, that the deadlines might have passed or they're coming up quickly, it's not to get overwhelmed and to get apprehensive and say, okay, well, they did all of this, let me try and mimic this as much as possible, or this person did this, and try not to get really overwhelmed. One thing that I found is, after saying that, I was like, okay, so what can I do between now and then? Because like Chanel was talking about, when she applied for a job and she didn't have much on her resume, I had nothing. So I could not get a job. So I was like, okay, so I'm already behind. What can I do? And instead of thinking, okay, I've missed all of these things, I'm screwed, you could try and think outside of the box. So for me, one summer I reached out. I didn't have a grant, but I reached out to a professor. I was like, hello, are you doing any research? I'm interested in what you're doing. Can I help you? It's not going to really appear anywhere, but it turned out that that professor wrote a recommendation for me for law school, because I wasn't doing anything that had any grants or I got paid or anything like that. I was just doing it in my free time. But I was doing that for 2 years on and off, and they got to know me, and it ended up helping. So I do think that just because like grants might not be as practical at the moment or something, if you have an idea and you want to start working on it, definitely get the ball rolling. Even if it's just reaching out to a professor and saying, this is my topic, I want to do it. It's too late now. I'm going to be applying for the next deadline. You have that in mind. But is there anything you're working on now that I can work on with you? Definitely. Why wouldn't you do that? I think that the more you can do, the better. And also, like, just remember not to, and it sounds stupid because I'm done, and of course I can look back and say, oh, kids, like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Everybody makes their own way. And it doesn't feel like that. And it can make you stressful. It can make you anxious and apprehensive. But it's important, just like when you're doing these things, to make sure that you are focusing on things that you want to do and focusing on your own path, because you don't want to be finished and look back and you're like, what did I even do all of that for? Either. So I would say that even though it's too late to apply to a lot of these things now, I don't think that you should let that discourage you, or even anything else. I think you should try and reinvent different ways to get going or to get started now if you can.
thank you. And I know one of our panelists has to leave, so my last question. Okay, never mind. My last question for you all, it's kind of 2 in 1, but all of you honestly have been touching on it. So I know some people are going to law school, but on one end, what are your plans for your research? I know when I was in undergrad, I had one plan, and now I'm actually continuing my research in grad school. Didn't think I was. And then also, how has your research impacted your career goals?
I'd say that it informed me a lot. Coming into freshman year, like as a chemistry major, like that's the only thing that I was sure about. I feel like a lot of people either they come in with like a strict major, like this is what I want to do, I know what I want to do. But I was just like, okay, chemistry, I guess I like the subject. And then I had the opportunity to do research, and it kind of helped to mold me as a student and as a thinker. And that's when I decided to take on Africana Studies as my minor. And it also like helped, it's like weird and kind of like cliche, but it also like helped me to like mold me into like who I was as a person too, because I was like really unsure of what I was even doing as a chem major. And then why do I want to take on an Africana Studies minor? Like that just seems like two different worlds apart. But I think about Black people in certain spaces, and I think that everyone here can agree that it's like really hard to navigate certain spaces when you look a certain way and historically you didn't fit in. So I think it's really important to remember that it's important to do research for just the basic skills that you can get, but also the opportunities and the people you can meet, because there's like so many people you can meet that can like help to push you in so many directions. That's just, you start off as a wee little freshman or a wee little sophomore or a wee little junior, and then it kind of like pushes you so far because you're meeting all these advisors or the people you're collaborating with to do the research, and they're like introducing you to like different opportunities and like different areas. They're like, hey, like I was applying to this thing and I thought of you and I think you should apply to it. So there you are, boom, another opportunity. So I think that as a chemistry major and as an Africana Studies minor, I want to go to grad school. I want to do research. I think it's really like informed me in wanting to do that, like going to grad school and do research. I know now what I'm looking for in terms of a mentor, looking for a person to help guide me through that. So I think that that's like something really important to look into. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for me, so I came into undergrad knowing that I wanted to go to law school. But obviously that's different for different people, and you know that changes. But I would say my research definitely influenced what the type of law I want to practice, and I guess different research opportunities that I could still like want to look into pursuing in law school. So done a lot of research on immigration, other social justice issues, and those are things that are important to me that I think will impact the type of law I practice in the future. Now maybe starting out in another like field area for money so I can pay my loans, but having this background in different social justice like issues, I think, and those connections and those skills to like think more critically and yeah, solve problems and like ultimately try and help people, I think will be influential in what I end up doing in the long run. Not to say that, you know, PhD is completely out the picture for me, because I was thinking about it, PhD, JD at one point, and I was like, yeah, no, this kind of sounds like a lot at all at once, but who knows what future me 10, 15 years from now will want to decide to do. So yeah, definitely keeping my options open.
I'm sorry, I forgot the question again. I literally just heard Chanel answer it and I did not internalize what the question was.
No, it is completely fine. It's a lot. So just what are your plans for your research? And then also, how has your research shaped your career goals?
Plans, immediate goal, write my thesis. Long-term goal on my research, I honestly couldn't tell you. Unlike Madame, I knew as well that I wanted to come in um, going to law school as the end goal. But unlike Chanel, I'm really unsure. Like I started and I was like, okay, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. I've done internships and I've done research, and I think I'm done. I've learned all I needed to learn. And now I'm entering law school with no idea what kind of field of law I want to practice, none of that. Besides the obvious, I want to be able to um, like start a life and then we'll see what happens. But so for me, I'm really unsure of the avenue that I want to take. I've taken classes, and a lot of the times I've realized that not my inspiration, but my interest comes from my classes. So right now, I took con law last year, and since then it's been all con law all the time. And I've been trying to frame the internships that I choose, the research that I hope to pursue, my applications, blah, 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 in that lens. But I'm not really sure of the next step in where I want to focus. I'm kind of open really to anything, because from what I've learned through researching with professors on topics that I'm not necessarily well versed in, is you don't really know all of the time. So obviously you know what you definitely don't like. That's clear. But you don't know, out of the things that you don't know about, what you may or may not like. So I'm kind of entering law school a lot more open than I had planned entering college. Right now, I'm even considering an interest in tax law, which is mortifying considering that's one of, if not the hardest thing ever. But I would say that I am interested in researching in law school as well, or at least focusing on certain things that take my interest. But I have utilized my time researching in undergrad, not to say that, oh, I definitely don't want to do that now or anything like that. It's just I might have accidentally exhausted everything. It wasn't on purpose. It was just because I was overzealous and I had 4 years to do that. And I think I've exhausted some of the things that I was really passionate about, or I've learned as much as I feel that I want to. And I'm kind of open now to seeing what else is out there. So that's kind of my next step as I go to law school.
Thank you, literally all of you, especially today, for being on this panel. And again, you know, being very transparent, being very honest, and being willing to share your experience. It is definitely valued for me. And I feel like I can obviously say the same thing for our attendees as well. So just some quick housekeeping things before we close out for today. This event was a part of Internship, Research, and Co-op Month that we have annually with the Center for Career Development. So there are still there are 2 more events within this month. They stop tomorrow. There's events all the time though, but for this specific month, they stop tomorrow. So if anyone wants to attend anything, I've posted the link in there for that, for the additional events. And you all should be receiving a handshake email within the next 48 hours with a survey on just like your opinions and your feelings based off of today. And then once again, I really just want to thank the 3 of you for being here today and really taking the time to do this. And also thank you, Claire, for helping me with this. Chanel, I don't know if you meant to post that with okay. So Chanel has extended that, her email, if any one of you want to chat further. I'll just paste it really quickly in there, and that's Chanel's stuff. That is all I have for you. Again, it's Tuesday. I know y'all have a couple more days left in this week. So I'm going to wish you all a good week, a good semester, all that, just in case I don't see any of you for the rest of the semester. And just have a good day. Thank you all.